Good evening. This is Maestro Cretella with another Dawn of War 3 Impressions and Elite video. So, Dawn of War 3 is now really here. Now I have a real computer that will actually not make this game look any worse than it already does. And, so, I'm going to show off some of the elites today. I know I already did that before, but now that the full game is out, I'm going to show off all the elites. Just kind of a quick elite look video, as well as also just give some brief impressions or just discussions about Dawn of War 3. So, Dawn of War 3 is out, and it is a little bit sad to say that the initial reception to the release of Dawn of War 3 is unfortunately probably the worst reception for a Dawn of War game ever. So, perhaps it'll even out over time. This might just still be a result of people really just wanting what previous Dawn of War games were. Perhaps the impression will even out a little bit more over time, but at least from looking at the Steam reviews, I did a little bit of math, and it turns out right now only about 57% of Steam reviews for Dawn of War 3 are positive. The rest are negative. And you might think, oh, well, I mean, that's still the majority of them are positive. But by comparison, most of the other Dawn of War games, I believe the lowest percentage for any other Dawn of War game might have been Dawn of War 2 at about 88%. So, most of the other Dawn of War games, at least going by Steam reviews, have somewhere between 88% or higher positive. Dawn of War 3 is at 57. Additionally, I looked at Metacritic as well. The Metacritic ratings from critics is something averaging like around 80 or maybe a little under 80, but the user average was something like 5 out of 10. So, this might not bode well for basically the life of this game. We'll certainly find out, only time will tell. Especially with the way the game looks right now, it's definitely kind of made in a way. Basically, Relic is setting themselves up for future DLC, certainly DLC that will just provide new elites, and eventually I'm almost positive we're going to see additional factions, unless this game just tanks so hard that they decide not to really add much else to it. But that's about as much discussion as I want to add right now. I'd like to take a look at the elites, because in the beta, there were only 5 elites per faction. I believe there are now 10. In the beta, however, all 5 elites were accessible at the start, whereas now only 3 are accessible at the start. So, for the Space Marines, we have Gabriel Angelos, as of course everyone knew at this point. It also looks like it says Deathwatch Gabriel Angelos, so there is another skin that wasn't in the open beta, which I can't take a look at yet. We do have, oops, let's not look at that yet. We do still have Kill Team Iron Maw, looking a little bit better than when I first showed them off. You can really see the red lights coming out of their visors, as well as the laser pointer on their gun. Solaria, still looking beautiful. But then we've got a few other elites. So if we take a look at them, now I can't really select them, but I can press info to take a look at them. And perhaps one of the most interesting is that before we had Captain Diomedes, and now we have Chaplain Diomedes. So this actually is the same Diomedes that was in Dawn of War 2. It is the same character. Clearly looking a lot different, and with a very different role. I'd like to know a little bit more, certainly when I actually start playing the single-player campaign, what that's actually going to be like in terms of the story, why we now have Diomedes as a chaplain. I think it might have had something to do with, kind of like in Dawn of War 2 Retribution, how his faith had kind of faltered a little bit. But if we take a look at Chaplain Diomedes, he has the Liturgies of Battle, empowers himself, increases speed, rate of critical strikes, and applies the bonuses of critical strikes to his normal melee attacks. And he also grants that bonus to other units. Zeal and Fury, gains Fury as he attacks, and loses it when he disables, when he's disabled or out of combat. And finally, let's see, critical strike. Alright, and we can click on an icon for a video. I'm not going to do that right now, though. So, and I can, you know what? I've got enough skulls for now. I'm going to unlock Chaplain Diomedes. You have acquired Chaplain Diomedes. Alright then. But we're going to take a look at the rest, because there are a lot more elites now. So we actually have So before we had shown off Solaria, and it turns out Solaria wasn't the only Imperial Knight. However, this Imperial Knight right here, it's just called an Imperial Knight Paladin. Clearly, it doesn't really have a character name, so it's not as personalized. And from what we look at right here, obviously there's a difference in the armament. We can see the huge chainsword, so this will probably be a more melee-focused Imperial Knight. But it does still have some ranged weapons as well. It apparently has a shield that will absorb damage, so it has the ion shield, and it can even change the direction that it's targeted. We have the piercing shot, so fire is piercing shot, and we have the Reaper Chainsword Sweep, so possibly a big area of effect attack with the chainsword. And we have the Fame and Glory passive. When it kills a vehicle or elite, it receives a cooldown reduction on ion shield and generates a charge of piercing shot. Looks like we've got 2 different skins, and oh, actually, so we can actually view the different skins when you're just viewing it, and I'm barely noticing a difference between those. I'm sure there is. Let's try again. No, this is the standard. Let's take a look at the mastery. I'm barely noticing a difference. Actually, I don't know if it's actually letting me look at it. Let's try one where it might be a little bit more obvious. Let's take a look at Gabriel Angelos right here. And let's see if it will show me Deathwatch. Yes, it will show me Deathwatch. So this is Deathwatch Angelos. Standard Angelos. And Mastery Angelos. So, and Angelos you might have seen before. He has 2 main abilities. He can leap with God Splitter, of course, the ability that has been complained about so much. And then he also has Retribution, which he just swings his hammer, disrupting, and he creates a barrier as well. Yeah, let's keep taking a look at new elites, actually, since at this point you might be familiar with some of the others. Alright, we've got the Terminators right here. Now, before I had shown off the Assault Terminators, here are just standard Terminators. Starting out, all of them have Assault Cannons, as opposed to Storm Bolters, with a Cyclone Missile Launcher just equipped by default. So, their abilities, they can teleport, and then they also have just the Cyclone Missile Launcher barrage. So, coming in at 6 elite points, 1 less than the Assault Terminators. Next up, we're going to take a look at this. Didn't know about this in the back in the open beta, but we've got a Venerable Dreadnought. And this Venerable Dreadnought looking a little bit different from the Venerable Dreadnought that we saw in Dawn of War 2, with this one clearly having more of a ranged focus, since it comes equipped standard with a Plasma Cannon, of all things. So that Plasma Cannon does have an ability, a maximal charge, can also toss. Throws a piece of terrain at the target position. Very interesting. As well as it has the Gets Hot passive. So it does mean it can overheat from the plasma cannon. Alright then. Maybe we can take... Oh yeah, that's the Mastery skin for the Venerable Dreadnought. So, and there are more things here. We do have the Dreadnought's Presence, Plasma Storm, Tactical Marine Plasma Guns do not overheat. We also have the Command Assault Leap. Assault Marines perform a low-flying leap in the target direction, causes damage to units it passes through. So, one of the things that happens with elites in this game is that they can actually unlock new abilities for other units. So, for example, the Venerable Dreadnought gives the Assault Marines an ability. And at level 3, you unlock this ability, but you need to select it. You need to have the elite selected, and you need to select that as the Elite's Doctrine. But at level 8, you can unlock that as an Army Doctrine, meaning that you don't need to take the Venerable Dreadnought as one of your elites in order to get the Assault Leap for the Assault Marines. So if we keep taking a look at some of the further elites, we do have the Assault Terminators, which we've seen before, but I think I need to show off more some of these other things, in particular their abilities. Their doctrine abilities. So Assault Terminators can teleport, expected, and they also have a Hammer Slam, slams the ground with the hammer, which will stun and slow units around them. So the Assault Terminator's command is a frag grenade for tactical marines. This is an ability that I think could potentially be very, very useful, since it really gives the tactical marines something that they wouldn't otherwise have, and something potentially very useful. But it'll also depend on how good the grenades actually are. And it actually appears to be showing us mastery skins by default. So that actually does make me want to take a second look at some of the other elites. So Angelos right here, his ability, he grants the Dreadnought Slam ability. I believe that's an ability the Dreadnoughts already have, but now it also gives them a barrier to increase their survivability. Take a look at Kill Team Iron Maw. Now, Kill Team Iron Maw, and I used this a bit in my past gameplay video, they have a Vortex Grenade, which I've been finding very, very useful, since this Vortex Grenade slows whatever squad that gets caught in it, and also applies a Marked for Death debuff. And then we see the Malleus Tactics, giving the Missile Launcher, as well as the Führer Tactics, granting the Flamer. So their ability is Death Watch Command. Well, it's actually, so Kill Team Iron Maw is a Death Watch unit, but anyway, Land Speeders apply a debuff to their target, increases damage taken, and reveals the target for a duration. So basically just a debuffing ability for Land Speeders. So each one of these elites can give you an ability for basically an entirely separate unit. So if we take a look at Solaria right here, Solaria she can allow, a few different things. So Tactical Marines equipped with bolters can fire on the move, but do so less rapidly. So it basically just allows Tactical Marines to put out more damage even while moving. So we're going to continue taking a look at some other elites. I think we mainly just have Jonah left. We've seen Jonah before, but I didn't take a close enough look at his abilities. So he's got the Fury of the Ancients. So he's got basically an arc lightning ability. We have the Emperor's Light. Increases damage of allies while disabling attacks, blinding and silencing enemies in an expanding circle, so it's a combination buff-debuff. And Stonewall, I've seen this one in use. He erects a magical barrier in a circle around himself and absorbs shots that pass through. Additionally, we also have Zeal, which is his abilities gains a charge when using abilities that decays over time. Each charge increases attack speed. And then if we take a look at his command ability, Blind Grenades. Scout grenades blind and silence the enemy for a duration. So I believe that is, the duration increases as you tear out. By default, the scouts have a stun grenade, and it looks like they either get additional grenade, either an extra ability or additional effects to their existing ability. So if we take a look at next the Orc Elites, we have a few different elites here because the default ones are actually a bit different for the orcs than they were in the beta. So we've still got Gorguts right here. Gorguts has, if we take a look, so Gorguts has his presence, which is Wah will heal, and then he can also has an ability for the truck. Units ejected from trucks gain a temporary shield and taunt in a circle. Gorguts can spin with his claw, with Spinning Claw, and he can also grapple with his claw. So he actually shoots out his claw, and wherever it latches onto, he will actually pull himself forward. He can loot scrap. Dirty fight, and Gorguts crushes his opponent with claw, causes damage and reduces damage output in a circle. Of course, these are passive abilities. And Critical Strike, which we're seeing a lot across different races, just in this case it's every 6th melee attack. I believe there's another unit where it was every 8 melee attacks. So we've got a Hunter Gorguts. Let's take a look at that skin. Impressive. Looks like he's been hunting maybe some Tyranids. Yeah, definitely some Tyranids. So, we're going back to Beauty de Morkanot. So Beauty right here is a Morkanaut. So a Morkanaut is a very large orc walker constructed in the image of the orc god Mork. Now, what I'm telling you right here, I feel like that's what should be in the description. Tell us a little bit more about it. I had to do a little bit of that research on my own. I do research on my own. I will find some things out. So he's got a custom force field. Rocket Fist. Fires its fist as a target location. Stunning and damaging. Gretchen Repair Squad. So it can actually summon its own Gretchens to repair it. And it's a reinforcement point itself. I think that's actually pretty important, that the Morkanaut is itself a reinforcement point. We're seeing loot again. So, and if we take a look, the Beauty's presence is Gretchen repairs significantly faster, and the target takes reduced incoming damage. So, looks like Beauty's thing is, aside from just being a powerful late-game unit that probably does a lot of damage, is that it's also showing that it is a support unit, which I'm seeing, because once you have Beauty, it seems like it would really also pay to get other orc vehicles as well. And Beauty's command custom force fields. Wall towers spawn a barrier that absorbs shots while the wall ability is challenging. Alright, we're going to take a look at the Storm Boys now. So Storm Boys weren't shown in the open beta, whereas now in the actual game, they are one of the standard elites for the orcs. Because you only get 3 to start out, basically enough for your elite roster. Storm Boys, I think most of you, certainly if you played either Dawn of War 1 or Dawn of War 2, it does surprise me a little bit to see a squad that I would otherwise expect to just be standard and be able to build from a building to now be an elite unit, only available as a call-in. But, you know what, that's what it is. It says Storm Boys are an assassin, extremely mobile melee jump infantry that deal burst damage. They can suicide, launching themselves at the enemy, probably like in Dawn of War 2, where they, the Bomber Boys ability, which was very powerful in Dawn of War 2. So we're seeing jump, alright, that's pretty predictable, and suicide bomber, so Bomber Boys. Alright, so I already talked about their abilities. But they've got their presence. Their presence when Storm Boys are deployed, vehicles can enter a crazed state, granting a shield and increases speed, but explodes after delaying, killing itself. Interesting. I think that could have a lot of potential use, because you can really change the momentum of an engagement, where if it looks like you're going to lose a vehicle, you can suddenly do a lot of damage with it. Storm Boys command suicide bombers, so when loaded with units, trucks eject a Storm Boy, suiciding on the target position, causing stun and damage in a circle. Now, what would be really interesting to find out about that is, it's saying that you can basically just eject a Storm Boy from a truck. So the real question is, can you do that if the unit inside the truck is not even a squad of Storm Boys? That would probably be pretty good. Alright, so we've got to take a look at some of our other elites. We've got Mega Knobs. So, not just knobs, but Mega Knobs. So, and this is a little bit different from, I think, certainly, well, Dawn of War 2 didn't have Mega Knobs, it just had knobs. And those knobs in Dawn of War 2 were just melee-focused. Whereas it looks like our Mega Knobs right here might offer a little bit of both, since the Mega Knobs have both a very big power claw as well as quite a few weapons. They've got both missiles and a shooter, and that shooter is big. So if we take a look at our Mega Knobs, they have an electric wall ability, so they can create an electric wall. It blocks enemy movement and absorbs shots. Increases or lowers speed based on allegiance in and line. Grammar mistake between the casting and target positions. And then we have the combi rockets. So, and it's actually, instead of using it actively, it's a toggled ability. And it sounds like they just start firing them if it is toggled on. So we take a look at their doctrine. When Mega Knobs are present, explosions become fun. And because they're so fun, they will heal the knobs. Explosive healing. 'Cause orcs. Meanwhile, their command ability is Beta Shout. Boys gain a shield while channeling Shout. So basically increasing the survivability of orc boys. So it is, I do find it interesting that all of the elites will have some kind of synergy or some kind of way of enabling an orc squad or another orc unit that is not the elite itself. And I think that will also have a lot to do with which elites become kind of the more favored elites. So we've got the Commando right here, looking very much like Commando in Dawn of War 2. So he's got a sneaky ability, throwing the stun bomb at a targeted position. Stealths the Commando when he does it. Meanwhile, we have the stun trap, so this is a mine that he can plant. So, last thing is his boomstick, which is passive, unloads a blast from a special shooter. So, it's interesting. If anything, the Commando Knob almost seems to have kind of less abilities than he would in Dawn of War 2, but some things kind of more just rolled into him by default. We'll take a look at his presence. So, rocket jump. When the Commando is deployed, tank busters and killer cans can fire their rockets at their feet, propelling them into the air. So just by having a Commando Knob, somehow your tank busters and your killer cans now get extra mobility for whatever reason and for however that works. Commando's command ability is Warning Grot. So the Death Copter, and again another way to enable a completely different unit, plants a stationary Gretchen that triggers a flare based on proximity. Provides vision and stuns in a circle. Next up, what do we got? We've got the other Orc super unit. So, and this is something that I wonder if I feel like I had no idea before, basically before the game finally came out, that basically they're going to give you two late game super units. So we already saw the 2 Imperial Knights for the Space Marines, and now we've got the Gorkanaut. So we had the Morkanaut, the big walker created as an effigy to the orc god Mork. Now we have the Gorkanaut, which is the equivalent for the orc god Gork. Now it appears that while the Morkanaut is more support focused, because it did say it was a tank and a support elite, the Gorkanaut it's showing as a nuker and an assassin. So more damage focused, and yet you can still reinforce from it. So, and that is interesting because at least last I checked, I'm pretty sure you could not reinforce from the Imperial Knights, but you can reinforce from the Gorkanaut and the Morkanaut. Gorkanaut looks a bit more ranged focus. So we have all Dadaka, and if we take a look at that gun that it fires it from, fires its Deathstorm Mega Shooter in the target direction in a user-specified cone. Additionally, we also have the Rocket Fist, which I believe is actually roughly the same ability that the Morkanaut had. So, the differences between these two elites seem actually fairly subtle. But, if we take a look, the command ability is Get to the Wah. So, Wah tabers, towers enable reinforcement of allied squads in a circle around themselves. That seems pretty big. That seems pretty key to me. I think that'll be important not just for having this elite. I think that's one that you will probably get as an army doctrine and probably select even if you don't decide to get the Gorkanaut. And the Gorkanaut's present is Tougha Boys. A successful wall reduces incoming damage. What else we got? We've got the weird boy Zapnoggin, who we have taken a look at before, but I didn't quite have the foresight at that time to really look closer at all of the abilities. So the weird boy has the Scrap Blast, fires scrap shards in the target direction, grants shields, and does damage in a cone. We've got, here we go, Zapnoggin teleports, and he even does damage with his teleport. Fist of Gork. Consumes a charge of scrap shield to manifest a giant fist in the target position. So we have seen that ability. Actually, no, we saw Foot of Gork. Now we've got the Fist of Gork. I think Foot of Gork was cooler. But you know what? This is what we got now. We've got the Fist of Gork. Meanwhile, Zapnoggin's presence can recall Luda's. And his command, bigger scrap shield, so the Death Dread creates a barrier of extra bits around itself. So basically making the Death Dread a little bit tankier. Next up, we're going to go to the Big Mech Wazmaka, a ranged infantry unit that excels at supporting an orc army. We've got the Tractor Beam, and this is pretty strictly a support ability. Grants a shield or damages. Oh, so actually looks like it can target allies for a shield or enemies for damage and slows. Next up, orbital scrap calls in junk from orbit, generating scrap and causing damage. Then he can make turrets. So this idea of scrap seems to be a big thing for orcs. They need to get scrap, and then they use scrap to do things. It seems to be a universal orc ability. Wazmaka's presence. When Wazmaka is deployed, wrecks left by your units are temporarily upgraded into scrap turrets that automatically engage targets. Interesting. So, you suddenly get basically a unit from your dead units. Obviously can't really move much because it's a turret. Wazmaka's command is Scrap Sight. Destroyed structures, vehicles, and squads temporarily provide vision. So basically, even after you lose things, they leave scrap, and then they can see things. I feel like that could be pretty powerful too, because you get a lot more vision than you otherwise would. Alright, then finally we get the Mad Dread, which I have shown off before, and I believe this is the Mastery skin. It's actually showing off the Mastery skins by default, because then we have the Standard skin, which is going to look a lot less fancy. Or not. I don't know. I can barely tell the difference. Am I still on the Mastery skin? Whatever. Alright, so the Mad Dread has a tunneling ability. Digs a tunnel between himself and the target position. Allies can either right-click on either side to teleport to the opposite end. They're not really teleporting. They're going through the tunnel. Anyway. Interesting. But a lot of passive abilities. So heals when he passes over scrap. Rampage. Instead of dying, the Mad Dread goes on a rampage. Interesting. So I was going to say it almost sounds like Stoicism from the Venerable Dreadnought in Dawn of War 2, but there's an added thing here, which is if he can get enough fury from doing damage when entering that rampage, he can actually heal, whereas if the shield breaks, he dies. Cleave attacks wildly, damaging in a cone area, so just all the time, and then Critical Strike, which we've seen a lot. Alright. Elite Doctrines. The presence is even longer Wa, so just increasing the length of Wa. And then hit and run. Killicans gain a shield when they have a full load of rockets, and increases speed when they have none. That personally does not sound like a strong ability to me, because I feel like if you're actively using a unit, it really shouldn't ever. It should very rarely be at either basically full charges or no charges. More likely, if anything, the no charges one is more likely, and like if you actually have it at full charges, then you wouldn't really be using the unit to its maximum effectiveness. So that one does not sound that good to me, but I could be wrong. It all depends on how it actually works out in practice. Right now I'm going purely by theory. I think we went over all of the Orc elites, so now we're going on to the Eldar. The last. So one of the things that is different here is that in the beta, the standard elites were Matcha, Taldir, and Jane Zar, while using all names. Jane Zar is no longer unlocked by default. You will need to unlock her using skulls. Instead, the Striking Scorpions take their place. We're going to take a look at Matcha first. So Matcha, coming back all the way from Dawn of War 1. She has seen a bit of... She has been publicized a little bit in some Dawn of War 2, Dawn of War 3 videos. So she's got a Singing Spear by default, and she can throw this spear at a targeted position. It will eventually... it actually remains where it lands, increasing damage in a circle. Psyker Blast emits a psychic blast of energy around her spear, and I'm guessing, yeah, like it basically is saying what I was kind of guessing. And you can either emit that blast whether the spear has been thrown or whether she's carrying it. Finally, at least for her activated ability, she's got Temporal Weave, channels a field around herself, causes stasis to enemies in a circle. That could potentially be pretty useful. And I like all the different mechanics between. There's a difference. The abilities are slightly different depending on whether she's holding the spear or the spear has been thrown. And she will actually use her hands. I like that as Literally, as a passive ability, she will use her hands when she does not have the spear. Makes sense. Alright, her presence ability is that instead of dying, elite units temporarily enter stasis and heal. That sounds pretty big. That sounds pretty big. I can see Matcha being important for the Eldar with that. Anyway, Matcha's command, enhanced battle focus. So empowering Wraithguard. Wraithguard enter a state of battle focus, increases attack speed but drains shields. That sounds high risk, high reward. So Striking Scorpions now the default elite instead of Jane Czar. So, and I mean, it makes sense. They wanted to make it, you have a low-cost elite, a mid-cost elite, and then a late-game elite. So the Striking Scorpions are a melee infantry squad that excels at ambushing. They can enter a stealth state. And if we take a look at some of their abilities, we'll even just get a closer look at them. They can leap strike. They can just jump from targeted position, causes damage and slow in a circle. And they also have hunt. Striking Scorpion stealth, creating a cloud of smoke, which acts as a patch of stealth cover. Got some of their passive abilities. Fleet of Foot, going to be common for Eldar, increases speed and shield regeneration while the unit is within the psychic radius of a webway gate. Critical Strike, again, common, pretty much common across all races at this point. And Mandablasters. When not in melee, they periodically fire their Mandablasters. Causes damage and slow. So basically they have a ranged attack as well that they will use when they're not in melee. Alright, so their presence doctrine is Hunters. Howling Banshees in a circle gain the effects. Basically when Striking Scorpions activate Hunt, Howling Banshees will also gain the effect of the ability. And their command ability is for Vipers. Viper's Sting. Viper's missiles explode on hit. So I think giving some extra damage and looks like debuffing for Vipers. Next up, we're going to take a look at Taldir again. Another look at Taldir, unlocked by default. And what I've been told at this point, some people are saying that Taldir is the Spirit Stone inside the Walker, and then, Ronan is actually the pilot. So Taldir can jump, which that ability has been seen. It's pretty obvious when a unit this big jumps. Scatter Shield. Raises Scatter Shield in the target direction, which will absorb shots that pass through it. And then finally, Eldritch Slash projects a ghostly image of herself in the target direction. It pierces, doing damage and applying stasis to units it passes through. So we've got Critical Strike and Fleet of Foot expected. Then we've got Eldritch Curse. Taldir can break stasis with her abilities or attacks, applying an Eldritch Curse to the afflicted targets. Percentage damage, slows, and reduced damage output. So if we take a look at more of the elites, this is an entirely new character, but it is an Autarch. Autarch Kyrie or Kyre. Autarch, a 5-point elite. And the Autarch is... I've once been criticized for my lack of knowledge about Autarchs. I know a little bit more about them now. It does seem like this Autarch is very similar from the Dawn of War 2 Autarch, though, emphasizing perhaps some of the Swooping Hawks Aspect Warrior traits. So we've got Eldritch Winds. Kyrie can create a cyclone that travels to the target position. You can activate Sky Leap to force cyclones to return to his position. Sky Leap, by the way, a little bit different from Dawn of War 2. Sky Leap would just basically take the Autarch off the field. In this case, he actually just starts flying and becomes a skimmer unit, able to disabling his weapons but increasing his speed and allows him to pass over any terrain. So a lot of potential mobility over there. Finally, we've got Plasma Grenade Barrage. Drops a barrage of plasma grenades directly below him. Passive abilities are some of the standard we're coming to expect. Fleet of Foot and Critical Strike. So Kyrie's presence is Dire Avengers gain 2 charges of Plasma Grenade. I'm looking at that as potentially very useful because I'm pretty sure that means Dire Avengers do not have the grenade without him. Kyrie's command. Improved skimming. Shadow Specters gain increased speed while their shields are up. It does not stack with Fleet of Foot. This one I feel like could be hit or miss, since Shadow Specters are a unit with a lot of mobility, could give them even more mobility, but it's also conditional, and they lose that speed buff when they arguably need it most. We're going to take a look now. So Jane Zar is back. You need to actually unlock her this time. And Jane Zar... So I didn't take quite as much of a look at her abilities before, but she throws Silent Death, pierces and doing damage, and eventually returning to Jane Zar. It doesn't say whether or not it does damage on the return trip, but I'm guessing that means it doesn't. Next up, Jane Zar dashes in the target direction. If she collides with an enemy or Silent Death, she jumps a set distance and throws 8 projectiles out from her position. Interesting. Aside from, of course, Critical Strike and Fleet of Foot, she's got Battle Scream. So when she charges into melee, she lets out a Psychosonic Scream, causing slowing in a circle. Her presence is Stealth Ambush. I remember that one from before. Howling Banshees become stealthed if they enter stealth cover. And finally, Command Swift Vengeance. When Wraith Blades die, they grant stacking bonuses to the surviving squad member. So when an individual Wraith Blade member dies, they grant, again, stacking bonuses to the remaining members. This could potentially be very useful. It's going to depend a lot on how good the Wraith Blade unit actually is. Alright. So, much like, well, for one, much like all the other races, there are actually going to be 2 of the late-game elite units, and then basically 2 of these big walkers. So we have a Wraith Knight here with no name, so it's not named after anyone, it's just a Wraith Knight. This Wraith Knight, if we just look at basically the difference in armament, clearly has a different focus and more of a ranged focus. So it has 2 Wraith Cannons, no sword. If we take a look at its abilities, it can still jump though. So it can still jump, so it can still have a heavy impact on landing. And then we have Distortion Rift, opens up a rift in the target position, causes knockback toward the center. So this looks like pure... According to what it says here, this ability does no damage whatsoever, but it's definitely going to be a big control ability. Then finally we have Focused Beam. The Wraith Knight fires a powerful beam of energy in the target direction, causes damage over time in a line. Fleet of Foot, but no Critical Strike because this, I believe this unit is not going to have any melee attacks whatsoever. Or, well... let's take that back. Anyway, Wraith Knight's presence improves recall. Soul recall on Wraith units does not consume charges while the Wraith Knight is walking on the field. Could potentially save a Wraith Guard or a Wraith Blade in situations where you might not be able to. And the Wraith Knight's command, Teleport Beacon. Dark Reapers plant a temporary attackable beacon at the target position that they can teleport back to. Okay, so you can save your Dark Reapers a bit. Alright, we're almost done here. So we've got the Wraith Lord, which I haven't taken enough of a look at. So the Wraith Lord, quite a bit smaller than those bigger Wraith Knights, but it also costs a few less elite points so you can get it out a little bit quicker. So this is, and the Wraith Lord's going to emphasize melee, and at least at the moment doesn't look like this Wraith Lord has any ranged abilities whatsoever or ranged capacities. It looks like this is strictly melee. Glaive Charge, the Wraith Lord charges forward in the target direction, and ultimately swinging its Ghost Glaive. Wraith Lord creates Ethereal Wall. Wraith Lord creates a wall that absorbs shots in the target direction. So, at least right now, it's not showing any ranged abilities whatsoever, purely melee. Wraith Lord's presence teleports all owned Wraith Guard and Wraith Blades to its position. So, what I like better about the abilities for the Wraith Lord, and I think mainly for the Wraith Lord, is that it actually makes a little bit more sense, whereas the other elites where you somehow grant an ability to another unit, it doesn't seem as connected. This one, there's a pretty clear connection between the Wraith Lord and other Wraith units. Wraith Lord's command. Webway Gates regenerate health and can now use Relocate in Tier 1. Relocate also casts faster and has reduced ability cooldown. just a few more, I think. Yeah, 2. So we've got the Warp Spiders. Again, surprised to see a unit that was previously just a buildable squad, now as an elite unit. But you know what? They look better than ever. So Warp Spiders can teleport, and they can now teleport a lot since it's charge-based. Yeah, they're going to be teleporting a lot, and that actually means that these might be better than ever before. They have slow mines. I kind of missed the haywire, but they plant a mine that triggers based on proximity. No fleet of, or yes, fleet of foot, but no critical strike. Critical strike being a melee ability. Their presence, the fire prism. When the warp spiders are deployed, the fire prism teleports to the target position and does bonus damage. So fire prisms can teleport. All right then. And the warp spiders command. Viper plants a device that triggers based on proximity, so they get their own... It basically sounds like a very similar mine that the Warp Spiders have. Not too impressed with that one, but, you know, I could be wrong. Alright, the very last one, the Ranger Ronan. At a mere 3 elite points, a sniper unit, long range. Look at that long rifle, looks pretty good. Ronan has the long shot ability, charge-based, so he can... Looks like he can probably put out a lot of them. Even provides vision on units it passes through. And the charges will generate faster if he's in stealth cover. Shadow Step. Ronan teleports to the target position within stealth cover. So it looks like... I don't quite understand that. I'll have to actually try it out. It sounds like teleporting basically to stealth cover. And he has Snapfire instead of Critical Strike. Alright, Ronan's command is Shadow Step. Rangers teleport to the target position within stealth cover, so it basically gives the same abilities to Rangers. And when Ronan is deployed, Center Interference. Sensor beacons create a patch of stealth cover at the target position. Alright then. So that is a look at basically the elite units available upon release. I have a feeling we will see more elite units come out as the game progresses, certainly as more races come out. But even more elite units just for the existing races. And they have been bringing back a lot of characters from previous Dawn of War games. Gabriel Angelos, Chaplain Diomedes, Jonah Orion, Farseer Macha, War Boss Gorguts. So it wouldn't be too much of a surprise if they start releasing other past characters. Personally, I would really like to see Tarkus from Dawn of War 2, although at the same time, I'm not sure if I want to see Tarkus, because they would probably change his voice actor, and I would probably be very disappointed about that, much in the way they've changed the voice actors for many of the other characters, and many other people have been very disappointed about that. But though that is a look at the elites. I'll also be I'm going to try to do some campaign videos, planning to go through the campaign, at some point get into the multiplayer as well, trying to do this while balancing it out with the rest of my schedule. It's not too easy, but I'm going to get it done. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good night.